learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come.
Everyone, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Dr. Michael McKillop, MBE, EIA. I'm going to put that at the end of my name from now on. Epilepsy Ireland Ambassador. And yes, the title of my story is Season Control, Winning with Epilepsy. Because the journey I took here today, I'm not talking travelling from Randallstown up north down to Dublin. I'm talking about the journey of life is not what you would expect to come from an elite athlete. Because as you've seen there in a little video, that was me at 4 years of age. I know what you're thinking, future catwalk model. I know. But in actual fact, that little video was me with TV cameras because I was going on to create history a couple of weeks later, and which I'll talk about in a few moments' time. But any good story has a good beginning. So I'll take you right back to when I was born. And these are a couple of images from when I was a young child. And I was born into a lovely, normal family, if you can call my family normal. But I was born into a normal family. I had two older sisters. I had a mum and a dad. And we brought up in a little town called Cushendall on the north coast of Antrim. And for me, being brought up there was quite special because of a hurling town. And my dad was the fitness coach of the local hurling team. And being involved in a community that involves GAA is quite special because you feel a part of something bigger than just yourself. And for me, being able to grow up in a normal community meant I had opportunities. And I was taken care of by my mum and dad who loved and cared for me wonderfully. But unfortunately, one day I fell down the stairs. I fell down the stairs, and like any good parent would, they picked me up and brought me to the local nurse's office. And they checked me over, and they said I was fine, and they sent me home. And then they started noticing I was now starting to walk with a limp. So they started noticing I wasn't really using my right hand. And so that a month later, we got an appointment at the Royal Victoria Hospital in Belfast. My mum and dad brought me to the hospital, and the doctors just pretty much said, oh, it's a habit. He's probably seen it on TV. He's only a year and 10 months. He's fine. He's maybe seen it even in childcare. He'll walk normally. And so, like any person, trust in the consultant. And we went home. And then over the next couple of weeks and months, it progressively got worse. And like any good parent knows, they know their kids better than anybody else. And my parents knew that there wasn't something quite right with me. And so they took me back to the hospital. We got another consultation. And it was within a second that the doctor turned around to my parents and said, your son has either had a stroke or he's got cerebral palsy. Like I said, like that. Not only did my parents' life change forever, my life changed forever. My parents went from having 3 able-bodied children to having 2 able-bodied children and a disabled child. No parent in this world wants to have a disabled child. But it was a key thing that they had to learn. And it was that word there, acceptance. Because life is not fair at times. Life is not straightforward. And life can make you cause stress. And for my parents, they either had to do one thing, accept it or hide away. My parents don't hide away. They ensure that I have the best opportunity in life. Just because I was disabled didn't mean that my life was going to be the end. And there's so many times in my life growing up that people have come up to me and goes, your parents were so amazing, because that they didn't allow my disability to be different. They allowed me to live the normal lifestyle that any good child should be able to live. And these are a couple of images here, and like it from the image on the right-hand side. Stylish good looks, I know. I had Mickey Mouse jeans on, my braces on, and my wee check shirt. But that's me with my cousin. And my cousin, that's where my hand sat. And that's pretty much where my hand sat up until I was about age 6. I know we'd walked, like I said, I explained, I walked with a limp. I still walk with a limp today because my disability is never going to go away. But for me at that age, I was oblivious. I didn't really care. And then I got slightly older, and this is a picture of me in my Ireland kit, or what I should say, my father's Ireland kit. My dad ran for Ireland when he was younger. And they obviously knew something I didn't know at that time, that I would go on to represent Ireland. And it's funny because that image is still in my parents' house, and I think to myself, well, actually, will my son see a picture of me in my Ireland kit? I have a 2-year-old son. And will he see me in an Ireland kit and go, I want to be like my daddy? I hope that is a possibility, but I'm not going to put any pressure on him to want to compete in running. The last image is me and my two older sisters at Christmas time. You see that there's some blood on my nose, and the reason behind that is because we used to live near a park that was a really, really steep hill. And it was Christmas time, and my dad got a wee sled, and he decided, throw Michael down on the wee sled. But stupidly, my dad parked the car at the bottom of the hill. I went underneath the car, burnt my nose in the exhaust pipe, and that's why you've seen me in the summer Paralympic Games, not the winter ones, because I wasn't very good at bobsleigh from a very early age. So now that I was about 6 in that, I want to bring it back to that little video. The video that you've seen there was the BBC TV cameras that was recording me, and there was another little girl after me being recorded. And the reason being is my parents were given an opportunity of a lifetime. Because my parents were told that I could have an operation that potentially could help change my life. And that operation was being injected by a chemical called botulinum. A teaspoonful of botulinum could kill 100,000 people in food. The injection that was going to go into my calf had only been tested on spastic mice. I became the first child in the UK and Ireland to be injected by this. And for me, that was my parents' chance to make my life better. And once again, it showed that my parents were willing to accept, to be able to risk, to help me. And that is the reason why my parents are superstars in my eyes. Because they didn't let me settle. They didn't let me be the disabled child. And like any single person in this room, and especially people living with epilepsy, or living with a condition that they didn't want, that they don't deserve, but they have. There's 2 primary choices in life. Accept the conditions as they exist, or accept the responsibility for changing them. Like I said, life is not fair, but if you can accept it within yourself, your life can be much better, so much better. Because in life, like always, there's going to be challenges, there are going to be hurdles. And like I said, life is not fair. So being able to stand up to the issues you may have, and being able to deliver a life that you want, is what's possible. The next thing that I had learned for me was difference. Because obviously I physically stood out. I was different. I walked with a limp. I didn't really use my right hand. And in primary school, all you want to do is be like everybody else. And whenever you're trying to be like everybody else, that's not the way you should live life. We're all individual. We're all different. It took me a long time, well, you could say a couple of years, to understand that I was different. Because like I said, I wanted to go to primary school. I wanted to be like everybody else. And the one thing I fell into was running, athletics, ironically, having 2 amazing parents that ran for Ireland. And this is an image here of me winning the national cross-country championships. It didn't matter about my disability on that day. It mattered about my ability. It mattered about my ability to beat every single child in Northern Ireland that stood on that line. If I came across that line first and I was finished 6th, I wasn't going to go, yeah, I was the first disabled child. That's not how I live my life. My life is, if I want to be the best, I have to beat everybody. I live with the mindset of a gold medal. And for being able to become the best, you have to use so many intricate things to be able to be successful. And the image here on the left-hand side is me receiving my gold medal and my trophy from a very special lady. Does anyone know? Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Does anyone know who that lady is? Lady Mary Peters. And Lady Mary Peters won the first ever Olympic gold medal, female gold medal for Northern Ireland in 1972 in Munich. And it's ironic because she gave me my first ever gold medal and trophy. And now I'm a board member of her trust. She supported me when I was younger, all the way up through my career. And now I sit on her board helping the next generation of children with physical disabilities and able-bodied athletes to become the best. And one of those athletes represented Ireland this morning and won a world silver medalist in the heptathlon, Kate O'Connor. She has now become the first Irish lady to win a heptathlon silver medal. And for me, that deserves a huge round of applause. Obviously, I have grown up with that physical disability. And it was about when I was 14 years of age when my next challenge happened. Because we were on sunny holidays. There were 6 people in my family at that time. We were staying in a big, massive, static caravan. And as everyone will know, the living quarters are not that big. The bedrooms are even smaller, and the beds are even smaller again. And I was sharing a room with my younger sister, not bed, sharing room. And it's our last night, and my parents were celebrating, just in the living quarters with my auntie and uncle, celebrating the fact that we didn't get kicked off the site, that there wasn't very many arguments, and no one had really got sick. And then all of a sudden, she heard a big, massive thud. And they ran in and checked on my 2 older sisters, and they were sound asleep. And then they ran into my room, and they noticed I had fallen out of bed. But then they had noticed that my head was in locked position between the bed and the bedside table. And they started noticing that my body was moving. They didn't have a clue. They phoned the ambulance came. And whenever I was in the ambulance, they got me, obviously in the recovery position, got me in the back of the ambulance, and I started taking another seizure. And they rushed me into the hospital, and they got me into a brain scan. And in that brain scan, they noticed that I had a cyst growing on my brain. Like I said, I had a physical disability. My cerebral palsy came from my brain. And now I have a cyst on my brain. A cyst that's on my brain that will be there for the rest of my life. At the age of 14, I went from being a relatively normal child, dealing with my cerebral palsy, getting on, living normally, to then being told, okay, you're going to be on medication for the rest of your days, night and day. You're not going to be able to watch much TV. You're not going to be able to stay up late. And knowing the simple fact is, I could go to bed and never wake up. Being told that at 14 years of age is quite scary. Knowing the realizations of growing up with a condition that you are not fully in control of is challenging. And so many people in this room will actually get it. I'm not around very many people that has epilepsy. This is quite nice. It feels like we're together as one team. But in actual fact, whenever you're told this information and your mom and dad are oblivious to it, and you as a 14-year-old child is oblivious to it, it changes your whole life. It changes the whole concept of what actually living is. And ironically, this is me after my second seizure. And this lady here, we were in sunny Wales. I might have left that part out because, let's be honest, sunny Wales doesn't exist. But this is the nurse that looked after me for 4 days in the hospital. And she brought me around. And people don't realize the impact medical professionals, nurses, doctors have on your life. And they're so important for all of us in this room, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't potentially have the life that we do have. And I'm blessed and lucky to be standing here, because resilience is impactful. Because yes, I grew up disabled. Yes, I dealt with my disability in a way that, 2-finger gesture to my own disability, because it doesn't matter. I'm proud to be disabled. It took me a long time to say that. I'm proud to be disabled. And being able to know that I represented my country, I was one of the %. 100% to be able to put on my Irish singlet, to become a 4-time Paralympic champion, to represent every single person in this room. I'm a proud Irishman. And just because I have this condition, just because I have cerebral palsy, doesn't make me lesser than anyone else out there that doesn't have a disability or epilepsy. And when we deal with this condition, it's scary. Because I only had sleep seizures my whole life. I was seizure-free for 10 years up until 3 years ago. I had 2 epileptic seizures within 3 months, 3 years ago. And 3 weeks ago, I had my first ever awake seizure. I'm standing here talking about it now. Because I feel it's important to realize that actually my life has changed. I lost my driver's license. I've lost my independence. I have a 2-year-old son. I was a stay-at-home dad 4 days a week. The thing I always say to my son, do you want to go on an adventure every single day? That has been taken away from me. So for me, the realization of the condition that I have is so more meaningful now because I have to be so much more switched on. And this is why Epilepsy Ireland is imperative. Because without the people that we have and the knowledge that they bring, none of us will be here. And if we don't have those people and the information that we have, we'll be left in the dark. And the reason why we left in the dark is because when I had my seizure, I live in the north. It's a shambles up north, just to say. Because I had my seizure, a daytime seizure, first ever daytime seizure. A seizure for over 5 minutes. I was unconscious for 24 minutes. And it took 7 hours for an ambulance to come. I was sat in a seat for 33 hours before I got admitted into a hospital. That's reality of life, living with a condition. And that's just dealing with me. What about the other people around us? The loved ones? The ones that actually have to witness it. My son at age 2 witnessed my seizure. Thankfully, he will never know about it because he'll not recognize that. But I now know that if I have a day seizure, my son might be there. And this is where I'm going to make sure that every single child knows about epilepsy, because that person could be the one person that could save someone's life. Because like we just listened to for half an hour about potentially people dying from this condition, if I can educate my son to learn to be able to put me in the recovery position, to be able to help other people around the schools that I deliver in, if all those kids would know, if all those teenagers would know, don't be afraid to tell your friends about this condition. I deliver mental health talks around the whole of Northern Ireland and Ireland. And I go into schools and I talk about my epilepsy, and one of the kids came to me and goes, I have epilepsy too. And she had never told any of her classmates. And I said, do you mind if I say that you have the condition? And she was like, yeah. I was just like, well, if you're letting me tell someone else that you have the condition, be brave enough to say it yourself. Because like I said, just because you have this condition doesn't make you any less than a normal. No one is normal, let's be honest. There's no such thing as a normal person. We all have our positives, we all have our negatives. It's about, like I always say, it's all about using other people's positives and your positives to make this world a better place. I always say about the younger people, you're the next generations. Without you, we're not going to have doctors, lawyers, barristers, bin men, whatever it may be. And that's whenever I talk to young people, because the realization of life is so, so important. But we all have this. And we can all agree one thing. We all have resilience. Because we all have seizures and we have to get up the next day and get on with life. And this is what we need to really stick to. Stick to life. Live life. Be the best version of yourself. And do something today your future self will thank you for. Because when you do something yourself will thank you for, your life will be better. Don't sit back and pretend that everything is okay, because it's not. but make it okay as best you possibly can. I talk about a team that I talked about my career, and I talk about every single person here, because these are some of the people that I had. Because I was full-time when I was 17 years of age. I lived childhood dreams. I went full-time at 17, I retired at 31. I traveled the world as a job. I ran some of the biggest stadiums you can think of. My last competitive race was in the stadium that they're using currently for the World Championships, Able Body Championships. It was in front of 0 people because it was COVID, but it holds 80,000 people. I've ran in front of 91,000 people in Beijing. And if it wasn't for some of these people here, I wouldn't be blessed. But the magical thing, and the last thing I say to people, if you believe, you will achieve. Because belief comes from in your brain. Medically yes, medically all comes from your brain, I know. But it comes from your brain. But the will to achieve comes from your heart. And without that, nothing is possible. Because that's where we get the feeling, the love, the passion and desire to become successful. So every single person in this room, do something today your future self will thank you for, and believe in yourself. Because life is worth living. Thank you.